Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to talk about strategy within strategy, or nested strategies for fast piano progress. A big part of this channel is in positing that learning how to learn, how to think, how to make literally better decisions. This will completely transform your piano progress in a way that's independent of traditional methods like scales, music theory, finger exercises, and so on. Like just by making better decisions, practice here to here, here to here, here to here, instead of just do this over and over again, that can lead to immediately higher returns, and it can lead to better long-term returns as well, because of course you're just actually better at understanding how to learn, how to think, and how to solve problems. So this video is hopefully to inspire you to start to make some of your strategy more sophisticated. If you want a lot of the basics, you can search David Chang 14 Layers of Strategy for some examples, David Chang Logical Methodology. That's a playlist on my channel as well too, even though I don't always keep it the most updated all the time. Sorry about that. But there's plenty of playlists, videos that walk through my logical notation. You can search David Chang Logical Notation. And if you want to know all of those basics, what I'm positing here is that within a certain strategy that we're using, like if we're in the middle of using a certain strategy, let's say it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. Well, while we're in the middle of step 3, we can use some other strategy within this step in order to complete step 3, and then we can resume with step 4, step 5, and so on. I had another video that was something like nested requirements for polishing piano pieces or something. That was more like having different sets of standards when you're polishing piano pieces. So you have like a more loose standard. I just called it perfect continuity. You play without stopping. And then within those, there are like different containers. Like you have like near perfect accuracy, near perfect technique. And these are like they're still pretty broad, but they're not as big as the first thing. They're like containers within this larger container, nested within, hence the nested term. And so then you want to try to play through with nearly your highest standard, and then nested within those, like even smaller containers, are like your perfect requirements where you are playing to the highest quality that you can. So you can search for that if you're curious. Here I'm talking about nesting strategy itself. So it's not like the quality of the playing, but it's basically strategies that are like they're contained within other larger strategies. And I think this general idea of nesting or containing things within other things, when I am thinking about it in the moment, this really isn't planned, I think it applies to a lot of different types of concepts. Like even, maybe I'll make a video on like nested dynamics, for example. Like within a larger crescendo, you can have smaller crescendos and decrescendos and so on. So this type of thinking has served me very well as a musician and as a thinker in all different aspects. So I'll give some examples now. So this is Liszt's Un Sospiro. This is a copy of a student's music. And I've taken the liberty of marking quarter measure set and eighth measure set markers. So quarter measure set markers, a quarter measure set is a quarter of a measure plus the next beat or the next note or chord. Quarter of a measure plus the next note or chord. Quarter of a measure plus the next note or chord. And so I've just used these little circles to designate those start and end points. And so that's what a set is in my methodology. And then an eighth measure set would be an eighth of a measure plus the next note, eighth of a measure plus the next note, eighth of a measure plus the next note. And that's what these purple swirls, or yeah, I think they're swirls. That's what they're designating, the start and end points of each of the eighth measure sets, right? So again, a set is just any sized section plus the next note. This notational system, this tells me how many measures plus the next note I've done perfectly smoothly to quality, ideally from memory. And you can search like David Chang, what I mean by quality in fast piano progress. I think that's the name of the video if you want to know more details about that. But even if we've done it correctly once, we will mark this marking with the curly brackets so we can keep track of our work. And I'm just going to start walking through. Let's say that we wanted to do this entire one measure set, which let's pretend that these markings aren't there. You can just ignore these quarter measure set markers for a second. Let's just pretend that we want to do this entire one measure set for whatever reason. So I'll probably start adding in reverse, separate them both for each step. If some of you have followed along with the channel, you might know this strategy quite well. So instead of, for instance, playing right hand alone through this entire measure, and then left hand, and then both, or another strategy like do the first quarter of the measure, and then do the second quarter, and then like instead of this, usually our default strategy is going to be adding in reverse. And adding in reverse could be, doing the last quarter measure set, then the last half measure set, then the last 3/4 measure set, and then the entire measure. Or a lot of the time it might be adding in reverse separate and then both for each step. So that might be right hand alone, left hand alone, and then both for the last quarter measure set. Right hand alone, left hand alone, and then both for the last half. Right hand alone, left hand alone, and then both for the last 3/4, or and then right hand alone, left hand alone, both for the entire measure. So because this video is like a little bit more advanced, we're going to assume that you already understand that, but you can search for adding in reverse separate than both for each step, adding in reverse for both hands, and my name if you want to know more details around that. So let's say that we're in the middle of that process. So maybe we're adding eighths of a measure in reverse. So we might do the last eighth, right hand, left hand, and then both. And then let's say I'm doing like right hand, left hand, and then both. And now let's say I'm starting to do the last 3/4 measure, or 3/8 measure set, right? The last 3/8 of the measure, right hand, and then left hand, and then both. And then let's say I'm encountering some problems. So this temporarily, let's see if I'm able to mark this in a way that makes sense. Okay. So this is the current thing that we're trying to do. So we're utilizing the strategy of adding eighths in reverse separate than both for each step. We want to make our way all the way back to the beginning of the measure. So far we've done the last eighth measure set, right, left, both, the last quarter, right, left, both. Now we're starting to do the last 3/8, but we ran into problems. And so now currently we're within this last 3/8 measure set, right, left, both frame. And we might use a different strategy, right? So this is the strategy within strategy. Within this last 3/8 measure set frame, we might use adding forwards, for example. So it might be that we do within this, the first eighth measure set, right hand, left hand, and then both. And then we might do the first quarter, like we might add an eighth. Maybe I can use a different color, use red. We might do like right, and then left, and then both. So this might make it easier as I'm doing a little bit of adding forwards, and then maybe I'll try adding in reverse again. Maybe I'll try doing the yellow or the blue. I might, within this 3/8 measure set frame, try doing a little bit of the green, a little bit of, so this is adding forwards within adding in reverse. Now it could be by alternating between my original adding in reverse strategy and doing a little bit of adding forwards within this frame. I eventually do reach the result that I was originally looking for, which was the last 3/8 measure set, right, then left, then both. But hopefully you see what I'm saying in that in order to achieve this green, I used more sophisticated strategy. It wasn't just the yellow and then the blue and then attempting the green over and over again. I actually did do a little bit of adding forwards, like I did just from here to here, just from here, just from here, a little bit of this. And then I might go through the yellow or blue. But in any case, between adding in reverse and adding forwards and alternating between those creatively, I eventually ended up doing this green. And then I've done the last 3/8 measure set, right, left, both. And then I go back to my regularly scheduled program, right? So I can erase this frame. And then now I might do the last half measure set, right, left, both, which would then be represented, for instance, by this red. And then I would continue along my merry way. I would probably, some kind of out of colors here. Let's see if I can use this. I can do the last 5/8 measure set, right, left, both. And I guess black isn't really that good for highlighting, but I could do the last 3/4, right, left, both. And I would just continue until I reach the beginning, and then hopefully solve that entire one measure set. If I had any trouble along the way, I could, again, use nested strategy or strategy within strategy as one of my tools. At any point, whether it's the last half or last 5/8 or last 3/4, I could start adding forwards within that. So adding forwards within adding in reverse is probably one of the most common nested strategies that I would use. But really, you can use any type of strategy within, as long as it makes sense. I think it's important that you remember the larger frame that you're in. So I drew that box just so that we wouldn't lose track. I mean, honestly, if I'm practicing myself, I don't actually literally draw that box, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm still within that overall adding in reverse, separate than both for each step, like adding eighths of a measure in reverse. I'm still within that overall strategy. I haven't forgotten it. It's not like I do the adding forwards thing and I forgot what my original strategy was. It was just a little aside in order to accomplish that step of the adding in reverse, and then I kind of go back to normal. Another example would be, for instance, let's see, very, very quickly, like omission strategy. So omission strategy is just omitting a note or chord. So let's say that I did the yellow. I did like right, left, both the last eighth, right, left, both this last quarter. And let's say I ran into some trouble here, right? So let's see if I can isolate this out. So within this box, let's say I'm having trouble achieving this blue while I'm trying to, I did the yellow and trying the blue. I might actually exclude one of these last note, like maybe at first, I don't play this chord when I'm doing both. So I do right hand alone, left hand alone. And then when I do both, I play the entire left hand and I play everything in the right hand except for this last chord. And then I add it back in. And then maybe I try doing the opposite too. I try leaving out this note, right? So that's the omission strategy. I think that's also on my channel. If you search David Chang omission, I'm sure that you'll find that as well. So again, you're doing like right hand alone, left hand alone in its entirety. And then when you do both, you just leave out this single note, but you do play this. You could also try blocking this chord more or using other strategies here. But in any case, you're removing something and then putting it back in. So that'd be an example of using another strategy, the omission strategy, within this frame. And then I would go back to my regularly scheduled program. I would then do the last, 3/8 and so on from there, just like as I was demonstrating the first time. There can be more sophisticated nesting as well too. So for example, let's say I did the last eighth measure set, right, left, both, and I did the last quarter, right, left, both. Now let's say that I did the last 3/8 measure set, right, and then left, and then both. And then now I'm going to, I'm going to start trying to do the last half measure set, right, left, both. And let's say I encounter some problems there. So once again, I'm going to isolate out this, either literally I'll draw it or in my mind I will do it. And there's still I believe that's a sharp there. So just pretend that you can still see that. Okay, so within this, it might be that we start doing that adding forwards strategy, right? So within this half measure set, I might do like right hand, left hand, and then both. And of course, I don't have to do right, left, both for each one. I'm just doing it for the sake of this example. I might do like right hand, left hand, and then both. So I'm adding forwards, adding eighths of a measure within this box here. And let's say that for some reason when I did this, where I tried this light blue, that I was running into some trouble. This might seem crazy to you, but literally I would think about it like this. Let's see if I can choose, just use black. So here's another box. Okay. So now within the, so first of all, we're adding eighth measure sets in reverse, separate them both for each step. And after we did the last eighth, we did the last quarter, right, left, both, the last 3/8, right, left, both, and we're trying to do the half measure set, right, left, both, but it was too difficult. So then we isolated it in this green box and we started using an adding forwards strategy. We did the first eighth, the green, right, left, both. Then we tried to do the light blue, right, left, both, but we ran into some trouble. And so then we isolated even this. We isolated this quarter measure set, which is in the midst of using this adding in reverse strategy. And within this, we could use adding in reverse. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you it can become pretty sophisticated. So within this frame, we could even add tiny little sections, and we could do right hand alone, adding single notes, and then make our way back here. So then we're end up doing right hand and then left hand, and then both. And so within this half measure set, we were adding basically 24ths of a measure, and then we ended up with, or I guess this is within a quarter measure, that we ended up with like this last eighth measure set. And if we alternate between this really dark blue and the light blue, and we go back and forth creatively between these, we may end up resolving this little black box here. And so that makes me successful in my adding forwards strategy. So then I could erase this like black box. And because I was successful in this adding forward strategy, let's say that I ended up being able to do this entire green box, then that means I was successful in my original adding in reverse strategy. Now I can do the entire last half, and then I go back to my regularly scheduled program, and I can now do like the last 5/8 measure set. Oops, I think I can use highlighter there, yeah, okay. So I can then do the last 5/8 and so on from there. And I'm really just, honestly, just doing this in the moment. And for myself, I hadn't even like marked those types of boxes before. It's totally okay if any part of it like you didn't completely understand or it seemed a little bit confusing. Obviously, there's other strategies you can use too. You don't have to use nested strategies, but it just gives you an idea as to the way that I'm thinking. Like there's different possibilities other than just pure layering. So you don't have to like just combine adding in reverse with spaced repetition or something, or just combine metronome practice with adding in reverse. You can relate the concepts to each other in more creative ways. And as you can see, I think that the boxing, it actually, I mean, maybe like boxes within other boxes is more confusing, but you can see how visually doing that can help you to keep track of what's going on. So it's like you're in the middle of a strategy, and then it's like maybe there's 8 steps in the strategy, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then while you're in the middle of step 4, you're encountering some problems. So you box that, and that could be like the green box or whatever. And then you're using another strategy within that green box in order to, like you're doing the adding forwards. And so you're adding like little sections at a time, and it's all for the sake of getting this step 4 in the green box. And you're adding little tiny areas, and then even within this, you're having trouble. So then we drew the black box. We used another strategy within that. Now we used the tiny strategy, and it resolves the original thing that you couldn't solve. So that's the reason why I removed the black box. Now things seem to be going fine there, and we can continue to add forwards, which then resolves the green box. So basically, like you encounter some sort of problem or impasse that you can't solve, you use some other strategy within, and this then frees you up to go back to your original process. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, questions. I think even if you use some aspects of this, especially adding forwards within, adding in reverse, that's probably one of the simplest applications. It could unlock new possibilities in your piano playing, especially if the limit is purely just because of strategy. And I find that a lot of the time it is. It's not always a physical thing or a mental thing or even emotional thing. While those seem like a lot of really specific decisions, sometimes I'm able to solve the problem for the student, get them to the next level just through making unusual decisions like these. They didn't need like many more months of practice. They didn't need to practice finger exercises for a really long time. It was literally just by virtue of more sophisticated decisions that we made that they were able to then conquer this difficulty and get to the next level. So anyway, hope this is interesting. Let me know what you guys think. Please like, subscribe to the channel, let other people know about it, and looking forward to the next one.